Hello and welcome back to Radical Democracy. I am very pleased today to have with us for Radical Resilience number 2, Debbie Montgomery Johnson with a very, very important message. And as actually these last two shows that we've done on resilience, this one we're doing today, the one we did last week with Jacqueline Rinaldi, are very important to me. The whole reason that I decided to do these shows has to do with actually some sad things happening with young people. A friend of mine was telling me about how suicide rates among young women especially are rising. And that is of great concern, of course, and also about how there seems to be a sort of hopelessness overtaking young people. And in part, this is because in my opinion, they are disconnecting. And we need these stories. We need stories. We need to help our young people understand that they don't have to be hopeless. They're not alone. And this feeling that they are alone, that there is no one to go to, it really becomes our responsibility as the parents, as the teachers, as the mentors, as the grandparents, to share with them stories of people who have been through brilliantly things that seem absolutely impossible to have lived through. We had Jackie last week talking about her devastating illness and how it turned her life around, but also how it made her happier, how it showed her what was really important, and now she's thriving. And so last week we talked about surviving dis-ease, physical dis-ease, things that are really challenging. And these stories of resilience, the stories of not just coming back, but coming back stronger than you were when you started are really important. And Debbie is here with us today. Thank goodness. And thank you so much for being with us, Debbie, to talk about recovering from emotional and financial disaster. I think is really what you could really describe it as. And in our world, we seem to put a lot more emphasis on that. How do people come back from these financial disasters? You know, you're in 2008 when the markets crashed and people went from being billionaires to millionaires, people were throwing themselves in front of trains because they'd lost billions of dollars. People were unable to recover. And this idea that you cannot recover from some kind of financial disaster or even emotional disasters, because for our teenagers that are turning to suicide and drugs, a lot of their feelings are these emotional feelings they feel like they cannot recover from. And Debbie, I simply cannot think of anybody better to have joined us for this topic. And I'm so glad that I want to thank Keith and Glenda Jowers for telling me about you. And we are really, really grateful that you have agreed to come on. And I'm going to turn it to you to tell your amazing story.
Well, I'm really excited to be here, and it's interesting as you were talking about the young women. I deal a lot with women over 50, and as I get older, they seem to be younger. But my story really started, I don't know how much of it you want me to tell, but it started 10 years ago in April when I got a phone call from my oldest son, and he basically left a message and said, "Mom, Dad just died." And I stood there and I listened, and he said, "I'm coming home to take care of everything." And Chris was 23 at the time, and I'm thinking, he's too young to have to deal with something like that. I'm the fixer. I can take care of this. My husband died very suddenly and had not been ill, and so it obviously threw us into a whirlwind situation, and like, we've all been in a position where we have to be self-sufficient and the one that plans and all those things. And my adrenaline kicked in, and I just said, you know what? I've got to pull all this together. I've got to put on this big funeral. I've got to bring everybody in. I've got to bring all the kids back in. And I was running on empty for 6 months, but I got it done, and I took care of it. And then I'm looking back going, so how do I move forward now? Do I have time to heal? Do I have time to look forward? And, I had to run his company because that paid the bills, even though I had my own job. There was just so much I had to figure out how to do. And I started to isolate because my 3 older kids were gone. My parents didn't live here. Once everybody left, and I'm sure you've been through funerals, but when immediately you've got a gazillion people around you. And when they all leave, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm in a house by myself and it's empty. And
Yep.
I don't belong to the family groups anymore. I don't want to belong to the widows club anymore, or I don't want to belong to that club at all. I didn't get out because I didn't feel like I belonged.
Yeah.
And that's the isolationism. You get lonely.
Yeah,
and I think the
yeah.
hardest time for me was at night between maybe midnight and 4 a.m. It was the first time that I, could get into bed and I was by myself. And Lou and I have been married 26 years. And I was just alone. And I was sad and I was mad. And I got mad at him. And I'm like, how can you get mad at someone for dying? But I got mad because the plans for the future weren't going to be like I thought. And he didn't leave a good continuity plan for the company. And so I had to figure it all out on my own. And thank goodness I was resourceful enough and had enough background in banking and, intelligence and all this stuff that I could do it. But and then here's the kicker, a financial disaster is 2 months before he died in April, and in January, February, he realized that his life insurance premium had gone from $100 a month to $500 a month because of his age, and he refused to pay it.
Oh, my goodness.
Although I let it go for a couple of months, he saw the charge in my bank account, and he got so mad, he called up and canceled his life insurance policy.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, I really don't want him to do that. But he pitched such a fit. I'm like, I don't want contention. I don't want to deal with this. And he goes, we've got investments. We've got things. I'm going to be around for a long time. No problem. 2 months later, he was dead, and I had no life insurance.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm thinking, okay, you've got to figure out his company because you can't keep it, you can't keep the roof over your head if you don't.
Right,
so,
exactly.
It's tough because I wanted to isolate, but then I needed to bring people around me to help me. And it was very difficult initially to ask for help because I didn't want to appear like I couldn't do it, that I was, weak in some way. And
I think that's a problem. I think you just hit something really important, that a lot of people don't want to ask for help. They want to think they can do it on their own. Excuse me, audience. Go ahead, Debbie.
Well, and I've learned this over the years, there's no I in team. And I tried to do it. I tried to do it on my own. I tried to figure out his company. I tried to keep my day job going. I tried to keep my health going. And then one of his best friends, who I got really close to, he was traveling and came to visit one day and goes, you look terrible. And I'm like, I've lost all the weight I needed to lose. I was, the skinniest I'd ever been. And I'm like, well, shoot, I can't win. When I was young, everybody said I was big boned and I was athletic and I was heavy. Now I'm, the same bones and everything, and I'm older, and now I can wear those skinny jeans, and now you're telling me I look terrible? And I'm thinking, this is not right. I can't win.
Of course
and,
not.
So then my girlfriend
You're
said,
a woman. We
life,
can't
Deb.
win. We can't win in that looks department. Even when we think we're winning, we look in the mirror again and then tell ourselves we're not.
Well,
but that's
we
another
see that
show.
16-year-old body that might have been heavy, and we're so critical of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And still today, I'm in pretty good shape, but there are times I look in that mirror and I see that girl that wasn't skinny enough, good enough, pretty enough, and I'm thinking, dang, Deb, you're 61 years old. Why do you think that way? And it's taken some real self-awareness and some working on myself to figure out that, I'm telling myself lies, and that's silly.
Yeah.
It's silly. But at the time, here I had lost Lou. I was trying to run the business. I was trying to keep all the balls up in the air, and I was exhausted. And my girlfriend said, you need a life. You need to do something other than work and work and work. And all those anxieties of being a teenager and dating the first time, those came rushing back at 52.
Of course. And I think that's a lot of what young people deal with. And actually, when you talk about you need a life, you need to not just work and work. I think one of the things that young women are so confused about, and why your story is so fascinating as we get into it, is that, we have many more expectations of women now than used to be. It used to be okay to be a wife and a mother, and that's it if that's what you wanted to be. But now young women are feeling like they're expected to be successful everywhere. It's like they're expected to be super women, have a job, have a family, and everything's supposed to be great. And this is a message that the culture is giving us. So I'm really glad you're talking just about this idea of, sometimes you can take a break from that. But go ahead, because the rest of your story is amazing too. Go.
Well, no, but I want those young women to know that whatever they choose, it's their choice. Mm-hmm. I've got a daughter. I've got 3 boys and a daughter, and my daughter, many times did things because she thought that I expected it of her, and I did the same thing. I did things because I thought my parents expected it of me, and we wanted to be the best we could be. And if we let them down in some way, it was very disappointing.
Sure.
I remember the first time I really let my parents down. I think I was 15 years old. And that really hit my heart. But the way I dealt with it back then is I was really into athletics, and I loved to work out, and that was my outlet. I think today I was just reading an article this morning about, unplugging from technology, because our children, and I've got grandchildren right now, I can see it in them, they get so plugged into their phones and their iPads that they're totally ignoring anybody around them.
Right.
And they're not playing with people around them.
Yes, they're not playing. They're not having fun.
And they can't talk.
No, they can't talk. They cannot express
because
themselves.
They haven't learned how they can't communicate.
Yes.
And I see this with our 20-year-olds, because to get a text return out of some of them is excruciating. To get them to answer us, like, just let me know you're okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a phone call. I remember in college we used to call home every week, every Sunday. You call in just to check in.
Right. Absolutely.
Now it could be weeks before you hear from one of the kids, and that phone is glued to their hip.
Yep. And then
So,
the loneliness starts to come over them because they can't communicate. So when you got to that point where you were working, and your friend told you looked terrible, and you were feeling like you needed more than just work, where did you turn?
Well, I realized that I wasn't a bar person. I wasn't going to go out and meet people that way. So I felt it was safe, and because everybody said, try online, meet people online. And remember, this was 8 years ago when this happened.
Right.
I guess it's been 10 years, 9.5. So back then, I asked people about online dating, online meeting, and all those things. And even my mother, she had a good friend who said that she had met a fella and she ended up marrying him. So everybody said, oh, it's safe, it's fun, you can, meet people from around the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, well, I can do it from my office. It's safe in my house. I can kind of do this cyber stalking in a kind sort of way. And so that's what I did. And I looked at faith-based sites, dating sites. Mm-hmm. I felt they would be the safest for me, and I might find someone that's, like-minded, liked faith, and all that kind of stuff. And so I put myself out there very carefully because I, of course, wanted it to be perfect. I had to have the right pictures, the right words, all those things, because I came with some baggage, or at least in my mind I did. And I was very, not scared, but I was a little bit worried about, putting myself out there online like that. But I did it. And honest to goodness, the guys between 52 and 65, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want someone like this. They couldn't write. The pictures, the old wife beater T-shirts is the way I put it. They showed up. They weren't the professional guys that I was looking for, and maybe I was being a little bit snobby at that point, but I'd been married to a really intelligent, good guy, and I wanted someone that would, match Lou or, be better or whatever. And so I was disappointed until I was contacted by a really good-looking man who was a widower. He was from London. He was a businessman, had a son. I think Kenny was about 10 years old. And he started to write to me, and he wrote very well. We were on the website, and we were going back and forth, kind of slow because that process is slow. Yeah. But I got to know him through emails. And then, a little bit into it, he said, hey, I'm in Houston, but I just got a job in the Far East, and it'd be easier for me to contact you on Yahoo Chat. Well, I didn't know anything about Yahoo Chat. And so he got me hooked up on Yahoo Chat, which is basically online messaging. And it was like we were texting. It was instant messaging. And it was fun. You know,
Yeah.
In the middle of the night, I could hear this ding, 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 and I would wake up, and those endorphins would be pounding, and I'd run to my office, and I'd get online, and we would be what I call chatting, but we would be typing for hours, going back and forth, just having a blast.
So this
And,
seemed like it could be a real thing for you. That was the whole catch, is that it seemed like this was a great meeting and it could turn out to be something wonderful.
It was perfect, and it was safe for me because I wasn't ready for a physical relationship because I'd been married for so long, and I wasn't ready for anything in person. But writing was phenomenal. It was a great outlet for me. I could tell him how I felt, happy, sad. I told him, everything about the kids, about Lou, about what I loved about being married, what I didn't. I mean, it was an amazing form of basically therapy. And I kept record of it. I actually copied and pasted every single email and text we had, and I have it in 4,000 pages of journal
Wow.
that I have published. I was thinking, great family history. The kids could see how Eric and I met.
Right.
So it was phenomenal, and it was exciting, and it had its ups and downs. I mean, there were times this happened. It started in the beginning of November, and so by Christmas time, he was supposed to be here to visit, and I got hotel rooms for him and his family, and I had all these things planned, and at the last minute, something happened on the job, and he couldn't come, and so that was a little bit of heartache, and
Right.
then I was like, oh, come on, pull your boots on and get back to it, because he was a great companion, he was a great pen pal, he was a great listener, and he was everything that I needed except someone here in person.
Right.
So that was the great big love story, and it lasted for 2 years. It was extraordinary. And I don't know if you want me to go into the unextraordinary part of it.
Yes, that's exactly what I want you to go into.
Okay.
Is
Well,
I love your statement on your webpage where you say that the money you lost was the best investment you ever made, and that's the part that I really think our listeners really want to know about, is how do you recover from something like that? So yes.
Well, and that's the story, is that what I've found over the years, and the bottom line is it turned out to be a scam. And why did I get involved? I can't ask that. Shoulda, coulda, woulda,
Sure.
I was very well trained. If anybody should not have been scammed, it was me.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, these guys are very well schooled in what they do. Their job is to get money from us. And they're very well trained to do that. And what took 2 years for me is now taking 4 and 5 months.
Wow.
And they're looking for, there's the segment of women 50 and over, divorced, widowed, and that. And then looking to the young women, it's the ages of 13 to 18.
Whoa.
And the reason for that is not for their money. However, these young women have access to their mother's and dad's credit cards.
Oh.
And the parents don't think about that when they see someone has gotten an iTunes card or something like that. The scammers are actually looking for the girls to buy those, and then they give them the number to the card.
Oh,
so they have
gosh.
access to the cash, and then they run away with the money.
Parents, are you
the whole
listening?
Time telling the girls that they're friends and that they're beautiful and all that heart stuff that the young women need, as well as their older ladies.
Of course.
They're feeding into that. They know.
Oh, I lost you for a minute
these
there.
Guys know. They know how these girls are looking for friends because they know that we're lonely. They know that we're isolated, even though we have a lot of people around us. Engaging with people, and these guys can listen and talk, and they can engage, and they tell you what you need and want to hear.
Right, they're
without
con artists.
Doing it.
So
they are so intuitive.
So what was the process that he took you through to end up getting over $1 million from you? Because I hope parents and women are listening to this because the fact that they're going for women younger and younger, girls, is really amazing. But go Debs.
Well, the younger and younger girls, and they're actually using social experiments too. I mean, I was on the Mel Robbins show with a young woman who was in her 20s, and she wasn't necessarily taken for money, but the guy that scammed her was doing a social engineering project to see how many young women he could get to send naked pictures
Oh, my God.
and videos. And he had 300 girls in their 20s sending him pictures of them.
No way. Oh,
He was pretending that he used a picture of an actor in California. This young woman actually found him. So if you want to see her story, she's on the Mel Robbins show with me. I can't remember her name. But anyway, he was so good at using Instagram and he pulled all of the social media of this one young fella from California, and he loaded it up on these profiles. And it was an app on a phone. It wasn't a dating website. It was, I don't know, Tinder, I don't know all the new ones. But, it's these social apps that the kids are going to.
right.
And he got them. Now, she was able to find him, but you can't arrest him because these girls are over 21. It's legal to send pictures
to
somebody else. But the young girls 13 to 18, that's not legal. But they want some attention. They want someone to love them. They want someone to appreciate their young bodies. If their pictures get sent, that's a crime.
Yep.
But that's where the parents really, we kind of balk, because I had a parent tell me one time, I want my child who's 10 years old to have a phone because I want to make sure I can get a hold of him. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but do you know what your child is doing on that phone? Do you know what kind of pictures your child is putting on social media?
And do you know that
out?
when you have an app, I just found this out today, that somebody was telling me that when you put any app on your phone, if you agree to cookies, if you just, most people just go, I need that app, I agree. Most of those apps mean they can get into everything you have. And unless you specifically say you can't get into my contacts, and the really trustworthy apps apparently will say that, can we access your contacts? And then of course you can say no. But a lot of these other apps, they're in all your stuff.
Right, and we don't pay attention. We don't read the contract,
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing about the online dating too. Even though they have down at the very bottom, these disclaimers about don't go off the website, don't do this, don't do that. It's not in your face.
Right.
And for someone like me who is 52 and very trusting, I trusted them to have vetted those people on the profiles.
Exactly.
They don't. Facebook
they
doesn't.
Don't at
LinkedIn
all.
Doesn't.
No.
No, we have to be very, very careful. And so as far as our young women and young men go, because this could happen to boys too, but you just have to be extraordinarily careful about what your kids are doing and be a little intrusive. We want to be friends to our children, but we've got to protect them.
Yes.
Because like I was saying before, if a young woman who's 15 years old plays lacrosse at the local clock at a game and she puts her pictures out there, any predator could see that and
right.
go grab her, and we would never know what happened to her.
That's right.
It's that simple, and that's what they do. I mean, it's not a hard game for these guys.
No.
And so it's awareness, and it's letting our girls know, because they're not thinking. It's fun to put your pictures out there. It's fun to let everybody know where you're going to be playing, games at such and such a time. But it makes them very vulnerable. And what they don't understand, too, is any pictures they put on Facebook and whatever, if they don't have the privacy settings very tight, those pictures can be taken and used anywhere else.
Anywhere,
I
know.
That's what the scammers are doing. They are taking pictures, and you'll see this with military guys. They will take pictures off of military sites, and they will use those to set up scammer profiles.
Wow.
And it's easy.
I know that's the sad part of it, is it's really easy. So after your big scam, how did you discover it? First, how did you figure out what was going on?
Well, and you asked me about the money. It starts off very little. It's kind of like when you get scammed at your bank account. They might take 50 cents, 25 cents, and you don't notice it.
Right.
Well, he asked me to help one of his buddies get onto the dating site. He was another engineer. He was out of the country, and he's having trouble. So I sent in a check to the dating site. It was very simple. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, great, more men online, right?
Yeah.
Well, silly me. So he saw that I was a little bit willing to help. And my basic feeling, I'm one of those damn Yankees, and all of us, that we don't give money away just to anybody at any time. But I will do anything for family. And over time, Eric became my family. And we were business partners. I was helping him with his company. He was, we were talking about stuff with mine, how we were going to build it up in the future. And Yeah, I started. He asked me for money for a power of attorney. His job was going to, and this is another thing about business. His job was going to get paid at the end. He was
Right.
going to get the money at the end. I get that. Sometimes I have contracts I don't get paid till the end. In the meantime, though, he didn't have the funds for some of the things that were happening, the tariffs, and I mean, I look back now and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Deb, this is just unbelievable. But when you're in the middle of it,
Yeah.
you want to do whatever you can so that the job finishes up so we can come home.
Right.
There's always one more thing, and then come home. And that's where the disappointments came, because we did the one more thing and then something else happened. But at some point, you're so far invested, you're thinking, I couldn't possibly walk away because I need to get my money back.
Right. Right.
And and this is the saddest part for me, but it's turned out to be one of the, not the best thing that happened, but it's changed my relationships with my parents, because I ended up asking my mom and dad to help me. Again, they would do anything for family.
Right.
And so even though my dad originally thought, this is kind of funny, this has been going on, after 2 years, Pop's like, this guy's got to be real. So they helped me. $100,000.
Whoa.
I felt so bad after the fact, because we were going to take the money, we were going to give it to Eric, we were going to get it back with a huge return.
Right.
We promised my mom and dad we would give them the interest on it in a big way, so it wasn't going to be a risk for them. I got promised that, right?
Of course.
And so it took on great urgency when he didn't come. And then on April, oh gosh, my brain's gone dead. September 10th, 2012, was almost 2 years to when we started online dating. Eric came online, and he was texting me or Yahoo chatting me, and he goes, how do you feel about forgiveness? And I'm thinking, kind of an interesting topic. We'd had many spiritual conversations throughout the years.
Right.
And so I put on my spiritual hat, and I started telling him how I felt about forgiveness, and this lasted for like hours. And then I got disconnected from him, which wasn't unusual, because I thought he was over in, I think at the time it was Malaysia. We were just finishing up the job, and he came back on and he revisited the forgiveness part. And so we talked a little bit, and I said, did I do something wrong? And I looked back going, why did I think I did something wrong?
Yeah.
But
Because
he
we
said,
always
Deb,
do
no.
when we're
He goes,
women. Yes.
I needed to know that you could forgive me, because I've got something to confess, and it's going to hurt you.
Uh-oh.
And I'm thinking, oh, I heard a confession once in my life, and it wasn't very good. And I said, are you sure you want to do this? And he said, yes, I need to do this. And he spilled the beans. He goes, I'm confessing that this has all been a scam.
Whoa.
And I'm
That's
looking at those
he
words.
told you the truth? Whoa.
Well, and at that point, I'm thinking, something's wrong. You're sick. Something's happening. You're lying. And he goes, no, this is the truth. And I'm like, then you have to prove to me that you're not lying. Thinking, oh my gosh, Deb. So he said, I'm going to come on live. Yahoo Chat had a little camera. I didn't know this. For those 2 years, I kept asking, can we Skype? Can we do, there wasn't Facebook.
Oh.
He walked me through pulling up that camera on Yahoo Chat, and I'm looking at the screensaver of my handsome Brett, and on this little camera pops up live a dark-haired, dark-eyed, dark-skinned young man with a big smile on his face. And
Not at all the
thinking,
picture you had seen.
oh my God, what just happened? And in an instant, this is a blessing from God. In an instant, my heart and my head got separated from the story. And I picked up my camera on my phone, and I took a picture of my screen. And I have one picture of him. It's actually in my book. I have a picture of this young man smiling at me, and his name was Joseph. And I'm like, what happened? And then for hours, we had this discussion about why did he do it and why did he confess? Because scammers don't confess.
Yeah.
And he had actually fallen. He I don't know if he had fallen in love. He just, over those 2 years, I can only believe that a little bit of my goodness was, at the time, a little bit brighter than his darkness.
Yeah.
And that he had a conscience for a minute. I don't know who he is and what his story is. And, I have to believe that part of his story over those 2 years was his real life, where, might have lost his parents, might be taking care of his siblings. You can't lie for 2 years and keep the story straight.
Right, right.
but he was just, he wanted to keep it going, and all I could think of is, how do I get him? How do I get
How do I
my
get
money back?
revenge? And
I
how
mean,
do I
we
get my
watch
money
the
back?
FBI. We watch CSI and all these. I'm like, how can I get it back? And so I kept him engaged. I kept him online, and I didn't cut it off right off the bat because I called my parents and I told them what happened. And honestly, I was sick. I was sick to
I'm
my
sure.
stomach because I'd lost $1 million, and I didn't have $1 million to lose. But I cashed in my retirement accounts. I sold gold I had. I sold jewelry that I had. I never, did anything with my home, thank goodness, because many women my age that have gotten in this situation, they've sold their homes.
Oh my
they've
gosh.
refinanced their homes. They become homeless. And so I never was at a point where I wasn't going to have a meal on my table. But I mean, I had worked so hard to get out of debt and do those things that I needed to set myself up for.
Right.
And when this happened, I was so blindsided. And, people say, well, weren't there any red flags? Well, when you're in the middle of it, to me, it wasn't a red flag. It might have been a pink flag. There might have been some yellow
Well, but
ones.
also, I mean, we all do that. All people, all humans, when they fall in love with somebody and you're getting those little messages, you tend to ignore it. You just do because you're thinking, now, I love this person. This person's wonderful. I trust this person. And I think everybody at one point in their life, especially when you're feeling lonely or you're feeling left out and you're feeling like you need somebody, I think it becomes very easy to overlook those little pink flags, like you said. So
Exactly.
after all this happens, now you're like on this mission to let everybody know about this, which is actually wonderful of you to do this and has actually changed your life, right?
It has changed my life. It took some time because, when you get scammed like this, in any kind of scam, you're feeling so vulnerable and ashamed and guilty and all these
Oh,
things,
yeah.
and your family and your friends are telling you how stupid you were, and you're like, you know what? I don't need anybody to tell me how ridiculous I was. I am so unforgiving of myself. And even though I initially said yes to Eric that I would forgive him, I had to realize that the first person I needed to forgive was me.
Yep.
And even though the FBI is like, well, you were manipulated, you're a victim, I'm like, I'm not a victim. I have never been a victim. I'm not going to let this guy have power over me to keep me a victim. And
Thank you.
I backed off. I didn't tell anybody what happened. I just kind of said, nope, it just didn't work out. And that was hard for me to live with because, again, I was beating myself up and I was trying to figure out, now, how am I going to get the money back?
Right.
Which I'm not. I'm not going to get the money back from him. I'm hoping someday, some way, in some lifetime, I'll make it back. But my goal, when I started to speak up, and the only reason I did it, I was at a business meeting, actually speaking about my company, and one of my girlfriends said something about online dating, and that got me to roll my eyes at her. And she said, tell me what happened. So I told her the story, and she goes, you have got to tell what happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't. She goes, my mom was taken for $80,000.
Wow.
And then another woman came up and said, I was in a Ponzi scheme, not once but twice.
I know,
And
it's
then
like a
another one,
billion-dollar industry.
Well, it's huge. It's billions of dollars.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm not alone. There are women out there that this is happening to, and nobody wants to speak up. And that's what the scammers bank on,
Yep.
that you don't speak up. And I got to the point where I'm like, okay, my mission right now, and a woman told me this once. She said, God let this happen to you because he knew you'd speak up. And I'm
Good.
thinking,
Yeah.
maybe that's true.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's my mission right now. And that's what I did. And when I started to speak up, I had one woman, and this is kind of funny, I call it the stink eye. She gave me that look.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you just wait. Heaven forbid something happens to you. But I'm not here to speak to her. I'm here to speak to the woman beside her that's going through the same thing, that feels like she's alone, has lost all hope, is on the verge of suicide. You're speaking about suicide earlier.
Right.
The women that have gone through this, young girls that maybe have been going through some sort of fraud, they're on the verge of suicide, and we can't let that happen.
No,
we can't give the power to those guys.
Yes, and that's I just want to read you what one of the people who's texting in said. Charlotte. Thank you, Charlotte. You are so freaking brave to tell your story, Debbie. Hashtag badass. And that's the truth.
You got it.
I mean,
You
that's
got
the,
it.
we need to start recognizing and commending people who are willing to talk about when these things happen to them. And you're one of those people. That's why I was so excited to have you on. And also we need to start recognizing when we are maintaining our victimhood. Like, it's one thing to have become a victim, but you really have to start looking at, after something like this happens to you, or if somebody's getting to you because you feel like you're a victim, we really have to start getting smarter about recognizing those moments. Your long-term scam, and totally understandable, like I said earlier, especially when it comes to love and loneliness, and that's what these guys are relying on. But there are a lot of people, they're politicians. One of the things they're great at is making us feel like victims. And the longer we stay in that, the less and less power we have, and the less and less we have any chance of recovering from it. And that's why your story is so powerful. So please continue.
Well, no, I want to give people hope that if they acknowledge what happened and realize that they're not stupid, they're not dumb. I mean,
Right.
I work with very intelligent, well-trained, well-financed women who have had this happen to them, and they are so embarrassed. They don't
Right.
want to tell their families. And I'm like, you guys, it'll take time, but you need to work through it. You have to grieve what happened. You have to go
Right.
through all those stages and get angry. You can't go for revenge because there's no way to catch these guys. I
Right.
mean, there are ways that we're working on it, but as a person, I couldn't go find him.
No.
But
And revenge
there's nothing I can
weakens
do.
you. Going for revenge is weak. It's like staying in that anger place. We talked about this last week with Jacqueline. I've talked about it in other ways on the show, is that when you stay in that place of anger, you cannot make any good decisions. You're just moving into a different emotion. So now I'm leaving behind the blaming myself, feeling bad about myself. I'm getting into this anger, and the anger feels better. So now if I can get revenge, I'm going to feel better. And that's not really the answer. That's not the spiritual path to take. And what you did was you took that next step. You came out of your victimhood and then decided to share your experience so that you could help other people. You could take this horrific experience and be of service.
Well, I want people to know they can survive this. And I as a child, when I was 15, we had a fire in our home. And I realized at that point that stuff is just stuff. And that my last suit has no pockets. I can't take the money with me, but it would be nice to have it in the bank. But it wasn't the end all. The scam hurt my heart more than it hurt my finances, even though $1 million is a ton of money.
Right.
But I knew I could recover and that I wasn't going to be without food. But I really had to work on my heart. And many of the women I work with that have had this happen, they shut down their heart.
Yeah.
And
that's
when
the
you do
sad
that,
part.
when you just close yourself up and you isolate, besides the depression, you're never going to open yourself up to love again. And I mean, I've worked with some women who are so into being a victim, 60 years
Right.
of being a victim. And I didn't want to, it was so hard for me because it dragged me down with them.
Yeah.
And I want to be positive. I want to be that light of hope. And if someone's not willing to accept that light, I can't do anything for them.
That's right.
And they're going to suck the life out of anybody that's around them.
That's true.
And that's sad. That's really sad for me to see.
Yeah. And you do have to, Jackie even mentioned last week in talking about dealing with physical disease and how much energy that takes. She talked about there are times when you have to let people go. There will be people that you cannot help. And there will be people that just want to drain you and glom onto you. And when your energy is focused on truly helping and truly empowering, because like Celia, my sister, said, the best form of revenge is to empower somebody else, not to have this happen to them, and empower yourself. So,
Exactly.
So that is something, that is your path, your mission, and that mission requires a lot of energy. And thank God you're
Well,
out there
energy
doing it.
and courage.
And courage,
And I don't
absolutely.
consider myself brave, but I've
Yes, you
jumped
are.
out of airplanes and I've done stuff like that. You sometimes just have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to that point now where I say yes. If someone says, "Will you do something?" Within reason, I'm like, "Yes." And that's why I don't know. I think I told you I just went to India. Why in the world would I go there? Because I was going over to speak to the women it's called the Women's Economic Forum in southern India, and it was well-educated women from all over India. And my story wasn't going to be my story. I was supposed to speak about raising young men to be respectful of women.
Right.
And I'm thinking, perfect, in for my story. And it was amazing because the Indian women, they don't talk about things at all like we do. And I was given, instead of 5 minutes on stage, they let me go, and I spoke for 16. And I told them the whole thing because there are a lot of scammers in India.
Oh, yeah.
And I
all
didn't,
over the world now.
Pinpoint that, but it was so enlightening for them to hear it. And they came up afterwards and said, "I know of somebody this has happened to." And they're never going to speak up, but now they know that someone else has been through it. So I'm hoping that they'll connect with me, or they'll connect with the organization I work with down in Miami called SCARS. There is such a great support system out there if we would just reach out and look for it.
What does SCARS stand for?
SCARS is the Society for Citizens Against Relationship Scams.
Oh.
And there's a way online at romancescamsnow.com or anyscam.com. You can report scammers. You can report their phone numbers. I mean, obviously, these are fake things, but they're building a database with the FBI, with Homeland Security, with the Department of Justice, with the Economic Financial Council in Nigeria. I mean, it is an incredible organization that provides support, provides knowledge, provides just the first place to go to. And I learned about it actually a couple years after my story had gone public.
Right.
And now I'm on the board of advisors with them.
Wonderful. And I think that's the thing about courage, too. Courage begets courage. I mean, everybody wants to be brave in your situation, but they're, like you said, they're embarrassed, or in any situation. But when you have that example, when you hear this story, then somebody else says to themselves, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's the thing. It only takes a few of us to stand up, like you said, speak up and woman up, and talk about these things so that we are more informed and so that we can bring an end to it.
Exactly. And actually, SCARS is now working on one of their pages is about parents and children in cybersecurity. It's all about cybersecurity and being careful, being safe. So it's an incredible organization, and I'm very proud to be part of them. But the woman behind the smile and my whole mission, that was me originally. It's like, let's get out there because all of us as women put up the smile, pretend to be perfect, pretend there's nothing wrong, and we're falling apart. Yeah. And if we would speak up, we would find out that the woman sitting beside us is going through exactly what we are. Yeah. And she just needed someone to hold her hand.
Yep. I took a training recently for running for office. And one of the things they said is that women say, sorry, I'm sorry, sorry. They apologize like 1,000 times more than men do. We apologize for the silliest things. We think of ourselves as first, it must have been us. We're automatically in the wrong. So, it's like you said, you had to forgive yourself first. This is it's a very important and empowering thing to understand about women in this culture, not just our culture, but in cultures all over the world, that this sense of empowerment comes from listening to other women. Like you just said, the woman next to you went through the same thing.
Absolutely, and I find a lot of my friends were in the same boat. They, something happened in a marriage, but nobody talks about it. You want to make sure that people think you have the perfect marriage or the perfect, kids or whatever.
Right.
Where did we come up with this? Did our moms teach us that? And I talk to my mom all the time about the way she talked to me about money, and money doesn't grow on trees and something. Right. Well, I can just give it away. I'm like, Mom, what a falsehood. You know,
Yeah.
if we don't talk about money, we don't learn about money.
Exactly.
And so there are things that I'll talk to my daughter about, or my boys about, my grandchildren about, that my parents would never talk to me about, or my grandparents.
Right.
So it's just making our kids and our children aware of what's out there. And so for us, they need to be aware of cybersecurity, about who's on the other end of that text, who's on the other end of that chat.
Yep.
You know, we don't know.
No.
I thought I did. I thought after 2 years I knew exactly who was on the other end of that conversation.
Yep.
But silly me, you know?
And that's, like Charlotte just pointed out, sharing wisdom and info to equip others is a superpower. I love that. That is exactly what this show is about. It's what women's circles are about. It's what you're doing is about. The more that we can share this stuff with others, the more we can have an example of people who are dealing with the same things we're dealing with and getting beyond them. It's not that your life stays the same, you know, it's things will change, but it's having the power to adapt to the change and to let it make you stronger, maybe in a different way. You know, than you thought you were going to be. Maybe you discover something completely new about who you are. And you certainly discover how much inner strength you have. And that makes you feel like you can do anything. It is a superpower. You do feel that powerful when you've overcome any kind of pain, whether it's emotional or financial or physical. And even when you're working your way through it, you get a belief in yourself and a confidence in yourself and a confidence in your faith, in God, in the Creator, in whatever's out there in the universe, whatever you want to call it. There are resources everywhere, and we just represent those resources that come to us through the energy of our faith, our universe, our spirituality, whatever you want to call it. That is what we tap into to have that kind of courage that we need in order to survive. So we're a little bit over, but I wanted to invite you, Debbie, to just tell us, give us your website, give us all your info, so all the folks listening can go and just visit you and find out when I know you tour a lot and speak a lot, so if you could just give us that info before we close out, that would be great.
Absolutely. Well, my website is thewomanbehindthesmile.com, and anybody can email me at Debbie, which is DEBBY, at thewomanbehindthesmile.com. Particularly if you know anybody that has had this happen, if they want to reach out to me, please, I'm available. And the SCARS, again, is a Society for Citizens Against Relationship Scams, can be found online at romancescamsnow.com. And I'm available to speak. I love to speak. It empowers me. And when you're talking about things that happened to us, I think life happens for us.
Yeah.
And if we, can embrace the good, the bad, the ugly, as I put it, and make the best out of anything. I mean, I've changed fundamentally from the inside out. I was a good person, but I feel like I'm a better person now. And I've gotten remarried, which is the great hope of all the women that this has happened to. I have a darling husband who supports me in everything, and I can't say I couldn't have done this without him, but it's been so much better for me to have him beside me as I go through this journey. But everybody, I want you to know you have courage to speak up, to stand up, and as I say, to woman up, because we've got it in us. It's our power within us, and we can't give that power to anybody else. We've got to keep it for ourselves.
That's
and I'm
right.
so grateful to be on this show, Maddi. I'm so grateful that you contacted me, and for Keith and his wife and everybody, because it's such an important topic, and I want people to spread it, share it, and contact me if they would like to.
It really is. And I love what Keith said, and everybody's saying thank you. Keith's listening, Glenda's listening, a whole bunch of people are listening. But Keith said, when you teach your kids financial responsibility, that's what this is all about. Taking responsibility is power. Taking responsibility for yourself, your actions, even when it's embarrassing. And then it's like you just said, it just makes you... It makes you a better person. It certainly makes you a happier person. That's what I think.
Exactly. Bottom line is, though, if anybody asks you for money, especially online, the answer is no. if you choose to, participate, if you choose to give to whatever, then okay. But if somebody asks you, absolutely no.
Time to hang up. Time to check out. Well, I can't thank
Exactly.
you enough, Debbie, really. And I'm going to be following you closely. And I hope to see you live and in person at some point. I want to thank everybody who's out there listening. Thank you, Bobby, Lucera. Thank you so much, everybody here at Strong Island Radio and Strong Island Entertainment for letting me put on whoever I want to put on. There are no restrictions. I love that. So I hope you guys out there got a lot out of this. I certainly did. And I want to, as always, say to you, peace, love, and unity. Thank you.